'Cause like a winter tonight, I thought I would always have light. The quick flash that you gave to me, so dark I could barely see. Looking
From wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be exploring the psychology of home buying. That's right. With us today we have Selma Hepp. She's a senior economist at California Association of Realtors. Let's welcome to the circle Miss Hepp. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Well, this is the part people don't really understand sometimes. I think when it comes to the work of an economist, they look a lot of times at behavior, especially the consumer behavior.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little insight on the consumer behavior of a home buyer? What are some of the things you guys look for?
So home buying decision is clearly affected by many factors. It's the employment, where are you in your employment cycle, where are you generally in your life cycle. So there are a few triggers that generally lead people to buy homes. One of them is when they get married. The other one is when they change jobs, they have kids, they get divorced. These are generally the biggest triggers when it comes to home buying decisions.
So are you looking at the demographics to see if that age range is growing or shrinking?
Sure. So we've had some concerns in the last few years about the behavior of millennials and whether they're going to be having the same type of path to home buying as the previous generations, because they, so far from what we have seen, they have not been as entering as at the same rate into the home buying market as the previous generation. So the concern was, is this a question of bad economy? Do they not have enough? The employment situation, or is it that they're not interested in home buying? But it turns out there are many factors, of course, that play a role. And one of them was the economy. The other one was that the job market was very slow for them for a long period of time. But also they are what we call delaying adulthood. So they're getting married a little bit later, and they're also having kids a little bit later. So if you compare this generation of millennials to the previous generations, you can see that the probability of being married is much lower, almost, I want to say half the rate of getting married than say the baby boomer generation, and also the probability of having kids at say 25 years of age, it's much lower than it used to be.
Yeah, my wife keeps telling me about delayed adulthood. I think she's referring to me, I guess, on that one. On
Sure.
the millennials, is it true? I've read some articles in the Wall Street Journal. Is it true that the millennials are going more to apartments and condos now, or is that just because of the job situation?
Well, it is true that millennials have different preferences. They are naturally, because they are delaying, so let's call it that way, delaying their adulthood, they are leaning towards smaller spaces. But there is also this trend towards more higher density environments with a lot of amenities. They like to be connected. So everything that has been said about millennials in terms of their preferences for mobile technologies, for walkability, for all other facets of life, it also plays a role in where they choose to live. So they do tend to live in more urban environments. An example of web traffic activity from Realtor.com. The analysis showed that the millennials were more likely looking in urban zip codes versus other generations were more likely to be looking at non-urban zip codes or more suburban zip codes. So it is true that their preferences are a little bit different.
Interesting. So they're actually looking to go into the city.
Yes.
How weird is that? All right. That's different. Have you noticed any trend differences? I know you're in California. That's what you focus mostly on. But are you noticing any differences at all throughout the states?
Oh, yeah, this is not just in California. This is generally a national trend. If you look at for example, Washington, D.C. Statistics for rate of change in population by age, you can see that the highest increase was among the millennials in the downtown area, so in the very urban in the very urban zip codes or the areas that but that's not just the case, again, California or San Francisco, LA, or DC that I just mentioned. We've been seeing this across the nation in downtown areas. So anywhere where there is any opportunity to live in downtown, there's some activity going on. Millennials are interested in that.
Interesting. Cultural differences. Have you noticed anything like that? I mean, do Chinese like urban environments more than the Japanese, or any other kind of differences? Mexicans, anything like that?
Well, to some extent, yes, but what is even more interested is so the millennial generation is said to be the most diverse so far of all previous generations. And so, partially the reason, and we also talk a lot about how still live, a lot of them still live with their parents or choose to live with their parents, and become sort of like a running joke among economists. But the truth is that because this generation is so diverse and different cultures have different tendency for multi-generational living. So for some cultures like Latin cultures, like Mexican cultures, kids generally do stay with their parents until they get married. So this increase that we've seen in millennial generation living with their parents, it's not only due to economic or demographic changes, but it's also very cultural.
Interesting. I was talking to an economist the other day, a friend of mine, and I was asking about the housing market because it looks like it's kind of been flat for a while, and you'll give us more information about that shortly. But he was saying that he sees the market getting more flooded with homes in about 10 or 20 years because of all the baby boomers letting go of their homes, either because they're 2 stories or too big, and now they're older, the kids are out. What do you think about that?
Okay, this is a very complex issue.
That's why
So
I asked you.
I'll begin with this. There was an expectations of baby boomers just sort of flooding the market, and we there was a paper that I was writing that I co-wrote together with Rolf Pendel from Urban Institute, where we estimated the number of homes that are going to be coming onto the market because of the baby boomers. Sort of, if they were to follow the patterns that they were having at the beginning of the century, so in 2000s, what would be the situation be today? Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's different of perspective. They change. They're not moving at the same rate that they used to. So the baby boomers are actually choosing to stay put, and partially that may be because their kids moved in with them, and so now the big home is not so big anymore because there's more people living there, but they are not moving out at the same rate that we were certainly expecting. And again, that could be the recession. It could be that they lost the home asset value in the process. So that's one thing. But they do show interest when asked where they would like to live. They would prefer to live in a single story home. So it makes life easier when you get to that age. Where stairs may be a challenge. So there will be some change, but one thing also to keep in mind is particularly if we're talking about California, is we have had such a significant housing shortage. There was a paper just recently released by a legislative analyst office that looked at the sort of what are the reasons why our housing is so expensive in California. And it showed that we have on average undersupplied 100,000 homes per year since about 1980s, which would be about 2.5 million homes added up today.
Wow.
That we have just not provided to the market. So even if these folks do decide to leave, I don't think we will ever in California, in the very least, have the issue of oversupply of housing.
Can I ask you a
We are
question?
actually significantly undersupplied. This may be a problem in some Northeast states where, not only that the baby boomers are leaving the state or want to leave the state, but also the millennials, and so the whole segment of existing population is moving to warmer areas. They may have a problem. I don't think in California we will really have a problem.
Let me ask you a question about that. That's interesting. 'Cause I was speaking to somebody else about this a couple of days ago. I'm talking to a lot of people about this. But why is it that we don't have more homes? Is there a lack of construction, or is it a lack of real estate, land? What's going on?
Oh, yes. Partially is that we're landlocked in many ways. If you look at how California is laid out geographically, we are landlocked, so we cannot spread out, say like Texas, where there's just an abundance of land. So we do have that issue, but that in itself is not the biggest issue. The issue is, if I could name probably one thing as a main driver, is the CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, which puts a lot of restrictions on what can and cannot be done. And so it also consequently raises costs for construction. So to build a single family home in California is about $50,000 to $75,000 more expensive than elsewhere nationally.
Wow.
So there is the cost there. Also, the process in itself is so much more prolonged in California that due to CEQA and sort of all the processes that we have to go through, that it takes about 2.5 years longer to approve a project here.
2.5 years?
in California. So costs
Wow.
add up. Time and money add up, and there's different requirements for building materials. They're more expensive, and then sort of parking requirements, and then we have. We can have a whole session on just this question, but the requirements, our zoning is very, very outdated. Zoning, CEQA, for example, in itself was passed in 1970s, and as you can imagine, things have changed a lot from 1970s in the way we live, and so a lot of those laws and even the zoning was laid out back then, or even before that for zoning. So we're a little bit antiquated in that sense, and that's all causing this undersupply of homes in the state.
Wow, that's 35, 40-year-old law, CEQA?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty antiquated, all right.
I mean, there is some good. The intent of the initial intent of the law was good. It was to protect the environment, but
Originally, it slows down the construction, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there, so I just wanted to make sure that the audience heard that. So you were saying CEQA had good intentions, but it slows down construction today.
Yes.
Okay. We also know the old saying too, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but that's besides the point. Okay, good. So I know, what is that standard? They say housing supply 6 months, 9 months is a good amount of supply in the market. What's the housing supply now? Do we know for California? Do we have 2 months worth of homes or?
Yeah, well, it depends on the area. Unfortunately, in the Bay Area, for example, some more desirable areas have less than a month of supply of inventory. If
Less?
Yes.
Wow.
So we do say at least for the existing supply of homes, that 6 to 8 months is about a normal inventory supply, and we have been averaging between 3 and 4 months, and this 4 month is in the last 6 months. Before the middle of last year, when we were in 2012, 2013, we were at about 2 months, 2.5 months of inventory. So it was very, very tight.
Wow, that is tight. We're going to take a commercial break for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. So we left off on housing inventory, and Selma was telling us that we have really tight inventory right now. A month or so or two for San Francisco or the north, and then down here it's like 3 to 4 months. And really, you don't see any way it's going to get a whole lot better than that because there just isn't enough homes.
Absolutely, that's true.
Okay. So let's start looking at the future. What's the senior economist of California Association of Realtors say the housing market's going to look like in the next 6 to 9 months?
Well, I think, so it's actually quite difficult to predict right now because a lot of things that we were anticipating would pan out sort of didn't pan out. And so let me explain what I mean by that. We have, in essence, really, really good housing fundamentals. We have interest rate that is really low still. We were not expecting the rate to be where it is today when we were talking about rates, say, a year ago. So we're at really affordable interest rates today, the rates that were back in 2013. Our job market is gangbusters. Particularly in California, we've had a really, really good job growth, and that's not just the Bay Area where we've been talking mostly about the really good job market, but it's spread out across the state, and you can see a lot of jobs being created in the LA, and so generally in the Southern California area as well. So we have good things going. We have good interest rates. We have better housing market. Better job market. We also have some loosening of the credit standards, so there is more interest there in kind of opening up that credit box that was so tight for so long, and really it discouraged, in my opinion, mostly discouraged a lot of people who could be qualifying today. Another statistic, very interesting from Urban Institute, I think. They estimated because of the very tight credit standards, it actually overlays that lenders chose to add on top of what was already existing regulations, that we are now missing about 4 million loans. So the 4 million loans were not created between 2009 and 2013 that would have otherwise been created had we had the same standards that we had back in 2000. And so these are not the easy standards, in the housing bubble. No, these are sort of normal standards we were talking about back in 2000. So if we were still there, we would have about 4 million more home purchases today than we've had. Yeah.
Wow.
So there is the credit issue is still on minds of a lot of people, and I think that's what's causing a lot of people sort of to sit back and not think that they would qualify. In a lot of surveys, when people are asked, "Do you think you could qualify?" they don't even know, or they don't think that they could qualify. So that's one major concern. And then again, so that being like sort of the biggest concern, in addition to the inventory. On the positive side, like I said, is the job market, is the good interest rates, and then we've had some improvement in the inventory, at least over the last year. We've had about 10% increase in inventory out there, which is, like I said, it's not 6 to 7 months, 7 to 8 months, but it's an improvement from before. The issue is that people just don't have an incentive right now to list a home. If you think about it, if they purchased a home back when home prices were lower a few years ago and they locked in that really, really good interest rate, or they refinanced, they owned the home for some time, but they refinanced in those really, really good rates back then. And why would you really have no incentive now to list your home, because prices are higher, rates are, a little bit probably higher from that bottom. So, and then the inventory is not there. So people really don't have an incentive to list. opposing pools, if I can say, that are making the market still very uncertain. But I think the job growth and good interest rates and improvement in availability of mortgage, I think that will help the market and improve inventory. At least I do believe we are going to have a better market this year than we had last year.
That's good news. Good news for everybody out there who's looking to get a home. All right, Selma, we have our last question. We call it the fastball question. We give it to everybody. Are you ready?
Sure. Let's try.
If Selma could buy a home, would you buy it here or would you buy it in your hometown of Croatia?
I would buy both.
Both?
Is that an option?
You took the diplomatic way out of that one. All right.
Well, I think I love Croatia but it would be my summer home. If I could afford a summer home, that would be my summer home. If I was picking a primary residence, I would for sure buy in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much for being on The Circle, Selma. We truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my sincere pleasure.
We thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, whether you live in a house or not, we're going to be there. See you next time, everyone.